so I get to know everybody, because I don't think I've had the pleasure of meeting everybody. How many Master Masons we have in here? How many fellow crafts? Entered apprentices? Seekers? I saw that, by the way. Right on. And you are prospective prospects for which lodge? 52. Very good. Well, welcome. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I guess as we started, we could all be upstanding, as no true great undertaking takes place without invoking the blessing of God. So if you would join me. Heavenly Father, we thank you for the opportunity to allow us to join together in brotherhood and fellowship as we gather together to enrich our lives and impart our thoughts, our opinions based on the craft that we all share. Wilt thou be pleased to influence our hearts and minds that we may each one of us practice out of the lodge those great moral duties which are inculcated in it. Amen.
So much.
So let's say that line again. Wilt thou be pleased to influence our hearts and minds that we may each one of us practice outside of the lodge those great moral duties which are inculcated in it. So brethren, tonight I would like to speak about something that lies at the very heart of Freemasonry. And sorry to break it to you for those that are non-Masons or are not Master Masons, there will be no sharing of any secrets or any little hints to what the degrees are. So sorry about that. But we're not talking simply about ritual. We're not talking about memorization, not titles, not offices, but the living application of the Master Mason degree in our everyday lives. There we go. Of all the lessons within Freemasonry, few are more profound or enduring than the story of Hiram Abiff. He is the protagonist in the legend and remains an archetype for moral rectitude, strength in character, and boundless duty to his obligations. His story is not preserved merely for ceremony. It is preserved because it reflects the lifelong struggle every man who seeks to live honorably has in a difficult world. The drama of the third degree, can you see? We're good? The drama of the third degree is not meant to remain confined within these walls. It becomes only a dramatic presentation and we miss its true purpose. The degree was designed to shape men, to influence how we think, how we lead, how we work, how we endure hardship, and how we treat others. The Master Mason degree is ultimately about transformation. It asks every Mason a difficult question. What does it mean to live as a man of principle when principle carries a cost? That is a question just as relevant today as it was centuries ago. The world in which we live constantly pressures individuals to compromise. We compromise our standards. We compromise our integrity. We compromise truth, duty, and sometimes even compromise conscience itself. Yet, standing in the center of the Master Mason degree is the figure Hiram Abiff, a man who retained the Masonic principles entrusted to him, even through the external pressures. His example becomes more than ritual symbolism. It becomes a blueprint for life. The central lesson that Hiram Abiff is integrity under pressure. It is easy to speak about morality when circumstances are comfortable. It's easy to be on the sidelines. It is easy to claim virtue when there's nothing to lose. But the real measure of character appears when honesty becomes costly, when pressure mounts, and when compromise seems easier than conviction. Hiram Abiff teaches us that honor is not situational, and that some things are not for sale. Not our integrity, not our fidelity, not moral responsibility, nor our obligations. Outside of the lodge, this lesson touches every part of life. A Mason may never face the dramatic trials, but every man encounters quieter tests. Temptations to cut ethical corners. The pressure to remain silent when truth should be spoken. The convenience of dishonesty. The lure of personal gain at another's expense. These moments rarely appear dramatic. Most moral failures occur not in catastrophe, but in small compromises repeated over time. Integrity is built or destroyed in ordinary moments. It is built when a man keeps his word after it becomes inconvenient, when he remains honest, even when deception would benefit him, when he fulfills responsibilities without supervision, when he acts correctly, even when nobody is looking. That is a true test of character. In our modern world, many people define this success by wealth, influence, status, or visibility. Freemasonry offers a different definition. A successful man is one whose principles remain intact under pressure. The degree reminds us that there are worse things than failure. One of them is surrendering one's honor. And so, the question every Mason must continually ask himself, what principles in my life are non-negotiable? Because if those principles are not defined before the moments of pressure arise, they will likely disappear when tested. Hiram Abiff is remembered as the master builder of King Solomon's temple. But symbolically, the temple represents far more than a physical structure. It represents the building of the human soul. Every Mason is a builder. We build businesses, we build careers, families, communities, institutions, and more importantly, future generations. And all of us, whether consciously or unconsciously, are building character every single day. We learned that our labors matter. Not just ceremonial labor, but our daily labor. The quality of our work reflects the quality of our discipline. Do we display mastery? Do we exemplify the mastery of our craft? The mastery of our responsibilities? The master of our discipline? Or ultimately, the mastery of ourselves? That is a lesson deeply needed today. We live in an age increasingly drawn toward speed rather than excellence, shortcuts rather than craftsmanship, recognition rather than substance. But Freemasonry teaches us something different. It teaches that every task deserves care. No matter what your profession is, a teacher, a mechanic, a physician, a craftsman, a business owner, a public servant, a husband or father, we should perform all of our duties with reliability and excellence. A Mason should never become careless in his obligations. The working tools remind us that the human character is shaped exactly the same way as stone, through effort, refinement, correction, patience, and repeated labor. And importantly, our temples remain unfinished. That symbolism matters. None of us ever fully arrive. The process of self-improvement is lifelong. Every day offers another opportunity to improve ourselves in our judgment, in our conduct, to strengthen our patience, to deepen our wisdom, and to correct our imperfections. The unfinished temple teaches us humility. No matter how far we progress, there is always, always more work to do. We also learn about endurance. Hiram Abiff faced numerous trials without abandoning his principles. Modern life presents different forms of adversity, but the challenge remains the same. Today we face pressures from finances, personal loss, professional setbacks, uncertainty, loneliness, temptations, disappointment, or moral confusion. Today, men feel exhausted, not only physically, but spiritually and emotionally. But in this degree, this suffering is acknowledged. And honestly, it guides us towards our understanding of it. It does not pretend that life is easy. Instead, it teaches perseverance through hardship with dignity, symbolically representing renewal. It reminds us that in despair, that's not supposed to be the last word. Every man eventually experiences these figurative moments of darkness, moments when our plans collapse, we lose the confidence in ourselves or others, when grief appears, or our purpose becomes unclear. This lesson is not to avoid hardship. The lesson is that we rise through it. Resilience is not stubbornness. It is not emotional suppression. It is not pretending that pain does not exist. True resilience means remaining faithful to one's principles even while we're struggling. It means refusing bitterness, refusing cynicism, refusing to surrender. And perhaps more importantly, it means to continue working. Stone by stone, day by day. The degree teaches that a man may be wounded without being defeated. A lesson well needed in our day and age. Forgive me for a second. One of our most remarkable aspects is in the way we see leadership in this degree. Hiram Biff is our protagonist, and he demonstrates leadership. He does not lead through force. He does not lead through fear. He does not lead through self-promotion. He leads through character. His authority comes from competence, consistency, and integrity. That is one of the greatest leadership lessons that Freemasonry offers. In modern society, leadership is often confused with visibility or position. But titles alone do not create respect. Character does. The strongest leaders are often those who influence quietly. A father who provides stability for his family. A mentor who guides without seeking praise. The co-worker who honestly earns a trust. A community member who serves consistently. And a Mason whose conduct inspires others without needing recognition. Leadership through example is enduring because it is authentic. People may obey authority temporarily, but they follow integrity willingly. Freemasonry teaches that influence begins with self-governance. A man who cannot govern himself cannot truly lead others. And so the Master Mason challenges us to ask, are our actions consistent with our teachings? Do our families see the same values we display in Lodge? Are we dependable? Are we fair, humble, patient, trustworthy? Because the most powerful instruction is never verbal. It's visible. People remember how we live far longer than they remember what we say. The Master Mason degree also reminds us that life is not meant to be lived selfishly or in isolation. We don't live in bubbles. The symbolism reflects humanity's continual search for wisdom, truth, and meaning. Masonry teaches that brotherhood is not merely as a friendship, but as mutual respect. The principles our craft should treat The principles of our craft should shape how we treat our families, our co-workers, and our neighbors, strangers, and especially those who are struggling, as we offer a hand up versus a hand out. The true test of Masonic teaching is not in ritual performance, it's in human conduct. The trowel teaches us to spread the brotherly affection. The square teaches us fairness. The compasses teach us restraint and discipline. These are not abstract ideas. These are practical expectations. A Mason should be known as dependable in his friendship, charitable in his spirit, measured in judgment, compassionate in difficulty, and honorable in disagreement. Our communities desperately need those qualities today. We live in a culture increasingly marked by division, outrage, impatience, and distrust. But our brotherhood offers an alternative. Things like teachings in civility, respect, restraint, thoughtful dialogue, and service to others. Brotherhood is not an agreement on everything, but it is a commitment on treating others with dignity. And service remains one of the highest expressions of our teachings. Not service for applause, not service for recognition, but service because it's right. The Master Mason understands that a meaningful life is not measured only by what one gains, but by what one contributes. The unfinished temple also teaches us something about legacy. Every one of us will leave something behind. All those before us left something behind. The question is, will we leave stronger institutions or weaker ones? Stronger families or fractured ones? Better communities or neglected ones? Better men or discouraged ones? Legacy is not built primarily through wealth or reputation. It is built through repeated acts of integrity over time. Most long-lasting influence occurs quietly in conversations, mentorship, acts of kindness, moral consistency, reliability, and service. Hiram Abiff's influence endured because of who he represented. And that raises an important truth. People may forget our achievements. They may forget our titles, but they rarely forget our character. The Master Mason degree calls us to build something larger than ourselves, to continue the work that outlives us, to strengthen future generations, and leave behind foundations others can stand upon. That is the work of builders. Ultimately, the value of the Master Mason degree depends entirely on application. Otherwise, it remains only symbolism. The real question is not, what does our ritual mean? The real question is, how does our ritual change the way we live? Practical application may include choosing honesty when dishonesty would be easier, performing our work with excellence rather than minimum effort, mentoring younger men without seeking recognition, practicing patience in conflict, refusing gossip or cynicism, supporting charitable efforts sincerely, remaining dependable in family and community life, and defining moral boundaries before moments of temptation arise. Character is not formed suddenly. It is formed gradually through repeated choices. Small decisions become habits. Habits become conduct. And conduct becomes reputation. And that reputation becomes legacy. Freemasonry reminds us that greatness is rarely dramatic. More often, it is quiet consistency over a lifetime. Brethren, the Master Mason degree teaches that Freemasonry is not confined to our ritual. It is a way of life. The story of Hiram Abiff continues whenever a man chooses integrity over compromise, duty over convenience, truth over expedience, service over selfishness, hope over despair. The real temple is not built of stone. It is built of character. And every day, each one of us continues that construction through our words, our decisions, our discipline, our conduct, and our treatment of others. The symbolism of Hiram Abiff only becomes real when it's lived. And perhaps that is the greatest lesson of all. The degree is not something we complete. It is something we spend the rest of our lives trying to deserve. Thank you. Now, I guess I'll open up to questions, comments, and concerns. concerns, but the teacher, we did bring a handout for each one of you with actual applications of examples of things that people see in everyday life, where we look at the different aspects of Freemasonry and the impact that it's meant, that it means. Questions, comments? Before we get to that? Bruce?
Joe, I just want to refer to our conversation we had the other night. It took me a while to learn, because everything I learned in the lodge. You know, it's just keeping in the lodge. You don't walk out, forget everything that you learned, and then you never apply it to your life and to those around you. So what we talked about was, hey, take it out into the world and share it with other people. Not what we learn here, but what we've been taught. And you're right, character, it's all about the character.
Right, what kind of Mason would we be if we do all these things, practice all these rituals, have these great conversations, go home, yell at my wife, kick my dog, and love my neighbor? What does that show for me, right? No comment.
It was a nice conversation.
Thank you. Very good. Actually, if someone doesn't mind, can somebody want to read one of the examples that we had? Just, thank you.
Would you like me to start from the top?
Pick however you want. I only wanted to do one or two, but I just wanted to showcase what we had.
Integrity in professional life. The symbolic lesson. Hiram Biff refused to betray his trust even under pressure. Practical example would be a manager discovers an accounting error that would financially benefit the company if left hidden. Reporting it could delay a promotion or create conflict with superiors. Yet he chooses honesty over personal gain. The application regards to keeping commitments even when inconvenient, refusing unethical shortcuts, being trustworthy with confidential information, and standing by principle despite pressure.
Another one. For those that are not yet Masons yet, is this kind of what you expected to hear from people like us?
Yeah.
That we encourage this kind of stuff?
Yeah.
Very much so. It falls in line with a lot of things that, you know, have been talking with us that we're kind of already doing, but give structure to it.
Yeah.
Refinement
Well, yeah.
and
Well,
And
so
for-
the examples that you were just talking about, you know, especially being former military, right, it's very familiar. But doing those smaller things, those smaller everyday actions or, you know, decisions is what kind of, you know, I guess, like I said, refines, but it reinforces what it's like, or what we hope to achieve.
absolutely. Great book, Atomic Habits. It talks about this whole idea of micro changes in your life and making these just little instrumental changes and watching them to add up. Simon Sinek, thank you, Pat Zach, talks a lot about if I want to go get buff at the gym, I just don't go in for 8 hours and pump iron as hard as I can. It's like a lot more like brushing your teeth.
Yeah.
Those two minutes a day, time and time again, help you accomplish those.
Consistency over intensity.
Exactly.
Progress over perfection.
Yes.
Joe, just a comment on the stuff that you talked about. You know, we talk about the unfinished temple. You know where that unfinished temple is? I mean, we see it on screens, when we're doing our proficiencies and everything else, but the temple is really each person's heart, and your heart will continue, you'll continue to build that temple till the day that you pass beyond.
I love that, and I would even go so far to add that not only is it our soul and our being, but it's also our vision and our purpose. Dream big, have big plans, and those people that are there to help you fulfill those plans will arrive. Don't be afraid to stretch yourself to do something great. because you don't know, you're worried about time. Another Simon Sinek, thank you, Pat.
I was just
introduced me
thinking,
to
so,
Simon.
when I used to teach my classes, I used to talk about, everybody brings something into my life. Some people bring things into my life that I choose not to emulate. Others bring things into my life that I think, that's something I really want to bring into my life also. When we talk about in masonry about living in a profane world, I mean, all you gotta do is flip on the radio or pick up a magazine or anything. This world, this country has become, well, this world has become so divisive in how they do it. If you don't agree with me, you're wrong, I hate you, you know, I can take physical force against you and everything else. One of the things I see as a Mason is the overwhelming necessity to be able to step beyond that and to find a bridge to communicate with people. We've somehow along the road, we've lost that ability to agree to disagree. And so for me, that ability to be able to look into what somebody else is saying and find a nugget in there that I can agree with, or you know, be able to explain something in such a way that we can come to some kind of connection, whether we wholeheartedly agree or not, I think is one of the most important things we face anymore. I mean, all the other things you talk about, absolutely, we need to be you know, honest with each other. We need to be honest with ourselves. Sun Tzu, know thyself. Those are some of the most important things to me. And so, but I've really been pushed and really felt this urgency lately to be able to move beyond that divisiveness that we have, and
I appreciate
and start looking and looking at people and finding the good in them and reacting to that or responding to that rather than that anger and that hatred that's out there.
I appreciate you definitely saying that. And you know, we're so accustomed to playing the wrong game. If you will, game theory, that if any of you are familiar with it, there's two types of games we play. We play a short game or a long game. In the short game, there's winners and losers. So when we go for who's right, it's usually this defeatist mentality that I will attack that person until they give up their position so I win. In most of our relationships, that's the wrong game to be playing. We're playing the long game. As we talk about our lodges, it's the long game. There is no win. Our only intent is to promote the progression of the relationship or organization to the future, to propagate it for future generations. So in a lot of sense, that when we start debating each other, when we start trying to be right over someone else, we're not even acting in the right format for what we're trying to achieve.
It's what I often refer to, again, in my courses, was the being competitive versus the spirit of competition. Because in a lot of ways, through sports and a lot of other things that we do, we're taught to be competitive and to basically grind out our opponent. We get that at work a lot of times. You know, we got to be the best company, and so you gotta beat the competition. You got to do those kind of things.
Funny question to add on real quick to that. Has anyone tried that with their wife?
Well, and that's where I was headed. And that is what happens though is we get so wrapped up in being competitive that we don't shut it off when we go home. And we take it to our kids and we take it to our wives and we start those arguments. And because we're in that competition mode, there's got to be a winner and there's got to be a loser. And that doesn't build strong relationships. That doesn't build relationships with our kids and our spouses and our friends and all those other things. So I'm a wholehearted believer in the spirit of competition and being able to step up to the next level to achieve whatever excellence or greatness we can in our lives. When we take it to that, just over that line though, and it becomes a competition, is where it starts negatively affecting the other people who care about the most in our lives.
And what civility would say is we create a lose-lose situation. We lose the trust of our kids or our wife. We lose the respect.
Well, we think we won.
But we won.
In the
right?
short term.
We have the pin there. Well, and it looks great while we're sleeping on the couch, but we won. But yet, what we're doing is gradually chipping away at that fragile foundation that our relationship is built on.
So what are you saying earlier, excuse me, about the world? And you maybe stop and think of 5 words, 3 values: brotherly love, relief, and truth. And that's what he said. What he said is like, well, that's what it takes me back to.
I'm glad you mentioned that because it brings in a promotion that I was going to do, because there are two ambassadors for civility that are in the state of Arizona. One of the things that we've learned to do is what's called Solomon's Wheel. And it's a training program where we use those exact tenets and our cardinal virtues. And we use those as a building block for the future. So I hope to come back and do that again with everybody. But it's exciting stuff.
What's really great about that, Joe, none of this is new. I mean, I was just reading the Scottish Rite Journal today about Roger Kipling and in his stories, how he brought the cardinal virtues into it back in the 1800s. I mean, this isn't something that Masons have just discovered.
But you know what is new to the whole story? Us. So we're reliving and making the same mistakes that people have been making for centuries. And it's not necessarily about Masonry that needs the refinement, it's ourselves. Well, I thank you all again. I appreciate your time. Yes?
Joe, you mentioned in some of your presentation here about the spiritual growth. What is that about?
Your connection to the divine. That boosting, and how I see your vision and how I see your purpose is igniting that inner spark within that helps drive you to become the best that you can be and find for yourself how you best help your fellow creatures.
To live in the temple.
Correct. If you want to get your credit on it. Again, thank you all very much. I appreciate you all coming out.